Okay.
We are here on podcast duty.
Yeah, this is how we start the podcast, Roger. It's super casual, but we are actually being recorded as we speak.
Good.
Yeah. So we'll just address the elephant in the room. Lance did not get better looking. It's Roger Gold.
Well, thank you.
There you go. Roger's been a good buddy of ours for several years, and through chatting with him, we found out that he worked in a profession that I had never talked to someone in this profession.
Nor had I.
Nor
in live person.
In live person. And that is, he is an entomologist. Right?
I am. I love bugs.
You love bugs. So kind of tell us about, your career, like how you got started in it, and kind of why does someone major in entomology or take classes or educate us dumb fly fishermen. I mean, me. I'm the dumb one. Curtis gets it.
Well, fine. I got involved in entomology when I started the University of Utah. I'm originally from the Salt Lake City area and loved to fish, and particularly in fly fishing. And so when I started the university clear back in 1962, my family told me that I was going to be a dentist. And as a result of that, I had to take all those biology courses. And I took a biology course from some very famous people called Edmonds, Goffin, and Springer. And the point being is that I ended up getting a job as a student sorting insects, and it all started there.
Sorting insects?
Sorting insects, like they were actually doing sampling on the Provo River.
Well, really?
And here, almost 60 years later, when we moved back to Utah after a career in the universities, I am still collecting insects from the Provo River.
Yeah.
And teaching people the students in the high school about insects and water quality and the relationships. And it has been amazing to me to see how things have changed in that period of time. The river itself, the fishery, but the students that we have now are very different than I was when I was their age.
It's not as good looking, I see.
Oh, probably not nearly. I actually had hair then, and it just got in the way.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
So how did the dentist migrate to the entomologist?
Well, I fell in love with this beautiful young lady
Okay.
that was in one of my classes, and it turned out that we have now been married for almost 60 years.
Woohoo!
And
That's good.
when you are married and still in the university and you have no money, you don't go to expensive schools. And so I was very fortunate because of my interest in entomology. I was able to get scholarships and finished at the University of Utah with a bachelor's and master's degree in zoology and then biology. And then I got a scholarship to the University of California in Berkeley in entomology and studied insects as vectors of plant and animal disease agents.
So and we were talking about that briefly before we started the podcast, because as a fly fisher, you hear the word entomology and you go, oh, that's how we know what bugs to fish. But you were kind of explaining to us one of the main purposes behind your studies, and it was pretty interesting. So it was the part about the bugs,
No, the bugs themselves are very interesting.
Yeah.
But some of the things that the insects are involved with are actually very dramatic. As an example that we talked about a little bit earlier, that malaria and other diseases that the disease agents are vectored by insects, mosquitoes would be an example. And actually the most dangerous animal on planet Earth is a mosquito, because of the number of people that die from the fact that the mosquito feed on humans to get a blood meal. And in the process, they can inoculate them with a virus or bacteria that can turn out to be fatal. Well, that particular area in entomology is called medical entomology. And so these are people, a lot of them, when they graduate in that particular area of the science, would work with the military or international agencies that are trying to save lives. And, here we are in 2023, and we still have millions of people die each year from malaria and other diseases like that. And you would think with all of the technologies we have, we still have to find ways to basically control the mosquitoes that are important because of what they do or cause in human populations.
That's crazy. Yeah.
You would not like from just saying, okay, Roger's an entomologist, and at the same time think, okay, that's part of that is saving lives, right? I mean,
Right.
that's you just don't think that in like terms of chironomids.
Yeah. Let me give you an example of that. I got a call just recently from the University of Utah Medical Center, and they had a student that had gotten lost in the Congo. And he finally walked out, and they were able to get him and rescue him and get him back here. And they began to name the diseases that this young man had picked up while being lost for a couple of months in the Congo. And basically, he had malaria and dengue, and the list went on and on. And I asked them what I could do to help them, and they said, well, we understand the diseases, and from what you told us, you talked about the mosquitoes as vectors. And I said, well, what kind of a diet do you have on this young man? And they said, well, pancakes and flounder. And I said, well, that's unusual. Why would you do that? And he said, it's the only thing we can get under the door.
Oh.
All right, well, that's... I am truly sorry.
Oh. Oh my God.
That's so good.
So one thing we always appreciate about Roger is he always keeps us laughing downstairs in the shop. And so, like the last place you worked was Texas A&M.
Yes, I was a professor at Texas A&M for about 30 years. And in that particular situation, I got involved with some newer areas associated with entomology in terms of forensics. And so I worked in forensics. I had my own practice in terms of testify in court about diseases and how things happen. Worked with bed bugs, mosquitoes, and the like. And it turned out to be very interesting in addition to being a professor.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who knew? And as Roger was saying earlier, the world needs more entomologists.
Yeah, so if you want to sign up.
Well, get a hold of me or get a hold of one of the many universities that offer programs in entomology.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of people we know that have gone, biology is a major, just because from fly fishing standpoint, it can be a passion for people and want to at least have some connection to the sport, whether it's water or whatever it is. But entomology is one that, I mean, I love the insects part of it. So
it's really
that's
cool.
a really cool angle to take.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot about entomology that is interesting to people, that when you begin to tell them what you do for a living or the kind of projects that you have worked on, are absolutely amazed. I worked in a number of different places depending on what the job descriptions were at different universities where I taught, did research, and was an administrator. Just things like we don't think about as much here in this part of the country is that termites, of all things, these little tiny insects that live in the ground, do a couple $2 billion worth of damage in people's homes, particularly in the more moist and the warmer areas of the United States. As you move to the north, then they're not nearly as important. But that brings us to something else that's kind of fun, and that's global warming, or climate, the changes in climate. As things get warmer, then insects that normally would have been in the southern part of the United States are going to be able to move to the north and survive, whereas temperature had been the limiting agent. in those particular areas. And so we're going to see a lot of changes in our lifetime. Another one is that insects are very much associated with pollination of plants. And of course, a lot of our food resources require pollination. With the changes in climate again and diseases of insects, we are having a problem keeping insects actually going and keeping them alive. In fact, some of the recent surveys have shown us that the number of insects that are trapped in standardized trapping areas across the United States and in the world, the total numbers of insects are going down. And a lot of people would say, well, that's great. Well, it's great for mosquitoes or insects are associated with crop losses or diseases, but it isn't when you come to pollination, because pollination is critical to human survival.
Yeah. There you have it. I mean, these are the sides of entomology that you never really consider, so we always, like we talked about, we talk about the fly fishing side, and that's when I imagined an entomology professor, I'm thinking of someone with like a presentation and pointing at like tails and segmentation and all that stuff, but it goes a lot deeper into just identification of the bugs,
It can, and certainly being able to identify the insects and other related organisms is an important part of fishing and medical and forensics and so forth. So it all kind of fits together, and I made a career of doing different aspects of that through the 50-something years that I was in universities.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So if you were to say at a high level for a fly fisherman, just from looking at bugs, what are like the top couple of things that we need to know, like from a bug standpoint, or do we not need to know? What do we not need to worry about as well?
Well, that's a little more difficult, Curtis, than you may have thought when you posed that question. As a professor, you want them to know everything, or we won't be able to grade them.
True.
And so, no, in all seriousness, fly fishing, we have a tendency to make it a lot more of a mystery than it actually is.
Yeah.
Fish eat food, and a lot of that food is made up of the insect population. There are what we call taxonomy associated with it. And when we're talking generally about insects and fly fishing, we're talking about the ones that are macroinvertebrates associated with the water itself in some way. There are terrestrials, of course, that will fly into the water. The wind will blow them in. But the main portions of the fish food, particularly trout, which is the species that I have particularly studied and am interested in, they eat a lot of the insects like mayflies and stoneflies. A lot of our efforts probably should focus more on the caddis, trichopterans, because they're so numerous, larger, and the fish are not smart. But they are.
Wait, what did you just say?
The fish are not necessarily smart, but they are efficient.
So when people come in the shop and they say, "Oh, I need this, I need that," it has to be this shade of green.
Well,
we need to tell them that.
It's true if you're selling that.
Okay, so fish are smart for the salesman, and fish are dumb for the entomologist.
Any animal that can survive, quite frankly, has to be brighter than the rest of the group. Okay?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's you just have to be smarter than somebody.
Right. Well, we've spent a lot of time in the last 3 years since we moved back to this area and have the river that runs through Heber, the Middle Provo. And we've had a number of the students in the high school down there sampling and teaching them how to identify them. Most of them are fishermen that do well in that part. But the point is that if there are a lot of insects in the water living at the bottom and so forth, that means that the water is clean. And so we are trying to get this next generation to understand that if you want a fisheries, you've got to protect that fishery. You can't be putting storm water in it and runoff from large parking lots and so forth, because the chemicals that are in the environment will ruin a fishery in very short order. And so by taking samples of the water and getting them to a laboratory, we can do chemical analysis as well as looking at the abundance of each of the groups of the insects. If you want to be very specific, if you see a lot of mayflies and stoneflies, that water it has to be very clean in order to support them. If you see a lot of scuds or pillbugs and so forth, they're able to tolerate a lot of pollution. And so it's been really fun to go in and show these young people the relationship between the things they like to do, which is fish and collect insects, to the environment.
To things they need to look out for.
Right.
Because so that would be a kind of a canary in the coal mine.
They are. They are.
Yeah.
And we see that if there's a spill, or like we've had the last couple of weeks or months where they've had some accidents with trains where they spilled their contents into the water, it killed the fish. Well, it killed the insects first.
Yeah.
And then the fish will die as they don't have enough to eat. So this web, we call it, of the environment, you tweak on one of those areas of the web and you get ramifications well away from it.
Yeah. Something that I think a lot of us, we don't put together often enough to say, the fishing was, or like the Henry's Fork is one that I look up on the ranch. You see a lot of that lately, and I think the insect population is one of those first things that they start to say, well, we're not seeing those hatches anymore.
Exactly.
So
again, the insects are indicators. We need to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
And it's plus, we all need to be environmentalists. I think we are, particularly fishers and hunters and so forth. Understand the environment has got to be clean for those game animals, and including the fishery, in order for us to live as human beings.
Yeah.
What are some things that are actionable items that people can do to help with that, either to help fix it or to prevent it in the future?
Well, get involved, is the point. Almost every community nowadays has a group that works with the mayor's office or the governor in terms of trying to preserve the fishery. The fishery itself is really important because we're drinking that water as part of our existence too.
Yeah.
Because the water that's in the river, it makes its way to the aquifer and the wells and so forth that we get our water in this part of the country. You may not consider even drinking the water in one of the streams or the rivers, but you got to keep in mind the aquifer is also being contaminated by construction and sewage and so forth. I don't mean to be negative at all, because our rivers have been basically protected, but there are people who don't believe that the river and fish are that important in their life.
Yeah.
They should be, because they're just a short distance away from what the fish are experiencing.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. And so, as a fly fisherman, when you first started coming in and talking about the efforts that you're doing up in Heber, you're working with the high school kids, right? So is it a class or a club, or what is it that you're doing there?
It's part of what's called an honors program, where the students in their junior and senior years in the Heber School District are supposed to have some type of a research project in order to graduate. And so they call it the CAPS program, the Center for Applied Programming and so forth. The point is that they want the students to understand, number one, science, so they can make good choices looking at data, And number two is that what is threatening our existence? I mean, when you're 17 or 18 years old, it just kind of floats by you. But when you get to my age, which is 18 or 19 years old, you become more aware that you would like to be able to live on planet Earth and enjoy these resources. If we want them for the next generation, and I have got my grandchildren involved in these things now in terms of the fishing and so forth, and they love it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I would like to see that preserved so that they can enjoy that.
Yeah, and the point I was going to make is, as a fly fisher, when I found out about that, as a consumer of the Middle Provo, I think that's awesome, to have somebody like you with your experience working with kids, but also gathering pretty critical data from the river,
We do, and we share that with the Department of Wildlife and so forth here in Utah. Mm-hmm. And now they take our data and they share it even further. So we're delighted that,
that's
that
awesome.
these young people
cool.
are actually learning to do things that will help for the next 100 years.
That's so cool, yeah. So the real question is this. Why do fish eat a purple bionic ant? That's arguably the dumbest fly I've ever seen in my life.
Because they can.
That's a dig on Lance.
Obviously, and I watch your programs that you produce, and they're excellent and they're accurate.
He has to say, hey, I'll give you the money later.
Yeah, there we go.
Did I say
But
50
the
or
point
100?
being is that a fish has to be attracted to something.
Yeah.
If you look at the way that fish feed, and we do that, and we can pump the stomachs of fish and see what they're eating versus what we sampled from the same area. Well, they're correlated, obviously. We just sample 1 square foot, but we do it in a lot of different places, is the point. So they have to be able to attract it, to catch it, and then to get it into their digestive tract. And that's a very involved process. What I have noted more and more as with Polaroid equipment and so forth, you can watch the fish feed, and you'll see that they're binge eaters. They will go down and dislodge the insects, and then they'll come back around and feed on the dislodged. And so it's not that they're just taking the diptera out or the caddis flies. They eat a lot of different stuff. But they'll eat whatever's swarming and or whatever's moving. Is that they're opportunists.
That could explain why Euro-nymphing is so good, because you're fishing your flies closer to the substrate. They don't look necessarily like hatch matching bugs, but they're there. That could be an interesting.
Right. Fish have excellent eyes, and obviously can discern colors. But I'm always amused when my wife will come down to my fly tying area and she'll say, well, those are beautiful. I said, then I better start over, because the bugs that catch the fish, they're not this involved.
Oh, yeah.
Fish can't count. I want to start there. They don't know the difference between 4 and 6 legs.
Yes.
And
you hear
That's a great point. I mean, so legs, the other thing that I hyper focus on sometimes are segments, like on chironomids.
Or wing cases like that Euro-nymphs don't have, So.
Well, it's you. That's why you practice, and that's why you do research, and that's the fun part to me of fly fishing.
Yeah.
Is that you can go out and change flies frequently, and even if you're catching fish, move on and try some other things and learn. And it's not illegal for you to look into the water or to strip the stones and see what's there. And you can make a small net and you can do this, but don't start just stomping around is the point, which is illegal in some of the streams here in the West. So we don't want to destroy them. The other thing I hope would find interesting is that if something occurs that would kill the insects in one part of the stream, the insects from above float down over that area and they will recolonize it. There's a little statement that says that no niche goes unoccupied through time. And so a part of the river that provided the resources to the fish, or other animals for that matter, it can be repopulated because that niche is suddenly open.
Right,
available.
And it's available, and there's less competition right there. And this happens within a few days to a few months. And it's just heartwarming to me. I mean, it's not a scientific word, but I get very excited about recolonization.
Yeah.
So that when we take a sample and we disturb 1 square foot, that square foot is recolonized very, very quickly. And that's something to kind of keep in mind. But on the other way, just don't stomp around. That disturbs the fish and disturbs the insects. So.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to get a sample then? So you have a seine, right, or a net, or I mean, what's the best way to do it?
Well, the best way to do it is you need to do several.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find very quickly that there are differences between slow and fast water, deep and shallow. And so if you have fast water that has a lot of ripples in it, that is the easiest for the fish to get oxygen is out of those areas.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they have to have what are called the requisites for life. They have to have water, food, and oxygen, and others of the same species in order to propagate. That's every animal has to have those resources. And so the fish are going to move where the food is and where they can get oxygen. And if they can do both of those, that's where they're going to be.
And see, that's huge. We were talking about this. One of our guys and we went to Colorado yesterday, and we talked about that a lot. You know, it's pretty interesting. You don't think about that a ton. You know.
Well, when we were in Argentina a couple of weeks ago, we on some sections of the river would only find the fish in the really fast riffles.
Yes.
And it was a little bit warmer than normal for a few days, so obviously more oxygen, lots of bugs chomping down there and floating around. And it was crazy, the difference between a little slightly slower section versus the fastest, most riffled. And
one of the key words there, Curtis, was the fact that it was warmer than normal.
yeah.
When water warms, the molecules of the water get further apart and the oxygen escapes easier. So cold water holds more oxygen. But you get oxygenation by having the surface of the water disturbed by rocks and so forth. So these are things that we were able to determine and the students were working with. And you can also take samples of the water and determine the oxygen, and it turns out that faster, more rolling of the water has more oxygen in it than the deep holes, for example. But fish get tired.
Yeah, it's a trade-off.
And so it's a trade-off, and
Yep.
they'll rest by moving over into the deeper, slower water, and then when they have digested or they're hungry again, they'll move back over into the stream.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of considerations like that. The other thing that I was thinking about, like the Caddis book, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Caddis Flies by
Caddis
La
Flies.
Fontaine.
And I think there were 2 authors on that. It was Rick, the last name will lose me. Anyway, in the book, and it's for the fly fishermen, it just breaks all the caddis, and there's, like, it blew my mind when I first read through that, how many species there are.
Yes, there are. There's like 700.
Yeah. So
The green ones, the tan ones. We got the black and the gray.
That
The
doesn't-
ones that hop. Yeah, I
light
got you.
green.
Now, Cheech, that will not get you a passing grade.
Well, we talked about this, Roger. You said you'd work with me before you failed me, and that's not a good way to do it.
No,
We'll work
it's-
this out later.
Remediation.
I saw one of the Far Side cartoons recently. He's, by the way, a very good zoologist and biologist. And his
Oh,
cartoons are based on actual biological principles. And one of them says, "Know your bugs, Bob, Harry, Lloyd." But it does help to know what the insects are.
For sure.
So on a caddis level, let's say the Middle Provo, which is a tailwater, I mean, are there 2 or 3, or how many distinctions would a normal fisherman, and this could apply across any tailwater, I mean, is it really as simple as, should I pay attention to the tan ones and maybe the size, or, obviously there's free living and cased. I mean, is there any,
Right.
I mean, there's obviously lots of patterns to imitate.
Well, first of all, it's fun to try different things.
Yeah, for sure.
But each of the species has their own requirements, is the point. And we have a wealth of caddis species here on the Middle Provo. And just the sheer numbers, we have sampled down by the Legacy Bridge at one point, which wouldn't mean much to the people here, but it's just a
They're
part of
Googling
the,
it now.
It's a
They're
good
Googling it
section.
now.
well,
Yeah.
that's true.
Lots of
But
fish.
we would get over 200 caseless caddis, hydropsyche, in 1 square foot. Wow. And there's
200.
There's something there that's holding those insects in that part. Now, it's way down the river just before it goes into Deer Creek.
Yeah, into the
And,
lake.
and so there's a lot of food that by that time is in the river and is coming down to that point. And the other one that is there are some of the pill bugs that, getting 90 of them in a square foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you don't find them up above there. And so there's something that's going in. Snake Creek comes in, which is out of some agricultural land. And it probably has a lot to do with blooming of algae and even bacteria. But that's what those particular kind of insects favor.
Yeah. So the idea would be, like for the Middle Provo, but any river I think is going to apply the same.
Right.
You're going to see those differences. So if you're fishing this section and then you're going 2 miles upstream or downstream, it may make sense for you to kind of understand, maybe not the numbers of density, but relatively speaking,
Right.
you're going to find caseless caddis a lot higher density here than you would in a different section on the same river.
Yes, that's absolutely true. The other thing is, though, is that there's a reason they're there in those numbers.
Yeah.
And that reason will be there probably for a long time.
Which,
So-
if you could identify,
Which-
you may be able to extrapolate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that brings
Hey,
me...
this is worth its weight in freaking gold.
I'm like blown away right now, Roger.
Okay, then let me...
This is crazy.
Let me show you something here, which is, it's just a publication. Every state in the United States has what is called a land-grant university. In Utah, it's Utah State. In Texas, it was Texas A&M.
Both
Aggies.
Aggies.
Aggies, and they're an Aggie across the country.
Okay, yeah.
Well, these are publications that the Extension Service puts out at these state universities, and I think every state has publications. This one happens to just be here on Plecoptera, stoneflies, and it has pictures and so forth. Well, the data that we produce, they're interested in as well.
For sure.
And
That's so cool.
And so you can go through the publications, and the thing that I like about it is it gives you a picture, and it also gives you an identification on them.
With some color, a little measurement, you could, like, if you
Right.
literally didn't, and I just made a joke back there. I said that's worth its weight in gold.
It is.
Gold, yes.
It is. But if you find gold, call me, and
Yeah,
I'd
that's
like
true.
to know
We'll
about
help you
some.
extract that.
where it is in the stream. Okay.
But like one of the things that got me into fly tying, I actually tied flies before I had my first fly rod.
Yes.
Was the idea of imitating something that a trout would eat. And when I tied my first sow bug, I had no, I mean, I'm sure there were patterns out there, but I had taken a sample and found sow bugs, and I didn't see any patterns in the shop I went to. So I literally went from memory of what that thing looked like and kind of the size, and I tied something that looked like it. So what you're showing there would be a great example if you can find those resources, at least to guide you. There very well could be insects in the rivers or lakes you live by or close to that maybe don't have the pattern you need in the shop or available online.
It can be.
Yeah.
So what I do and recommend that people do, this is a vial, and it's got an insect in it, a single insect that we caught during the sampling process, and it was unusual. Number one, it's fairly large, and this is a caddis fly, and it's what's called a hydropsyche is the family.
Yep.
Okay. The thing about this is that I can use this as an exemplar. And one of the things I enjoy doing is to take something that I caught, or sampled and got. I turned all the rest of them loose, kept one representative. It's an exemplar for tying a fly. You don't have to just tie flies that other people tie and publish and so forth. You can do your own, and it's one of the fun things is to look at it and think what techniques you're going to use to get the segmentation and the head and so forth. Now, if you're going to do this, you have to preserve them in alcohol. And isopropyl, which is rubbing alcohol, up in the 90%, 91 or 2, will preserve these for years. If they evaporate, then you need to fill them up periodically. But this is what we do in entomology. We have specimens that we use as exemplars to teach the students and also to use when we're tying flies and trying
That's
to teach
awesome.
them that.
One of the things about this kind of stuff is you hear hook sizing, right?
Yeah.
So everyone says, what's a real size 18 or what's a real size 16? Or I want a size 18 with a wide gap and a short shank and blah, blah, blah. This way, if you're getting a bug, you just know, okay, this bug is roughly 23 millimeters long.
Yes.
And so I need a hook shank that's 23 millimeters long. I don't care what the number on the package says. So a real fly tier's getting stuff like this. I shouldn't say real fly tire, but
a fly tire.
You're getting samples of bugs, you're getting measurements, and you're using those to choose the hook and the bead and everything that you're going to put on it. Not just like, oh, they're size 10 stoneflies, because a size 10 hook could be a half-inch long, and it also could be a full inch long, depending on how.
It depends on the manufacturer.
Exactly.
So the other thing is that if you were sampling these, you would see that they have a natural curve to them.
Right.
So your fly that you would tie basically would have a curve.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of being straight, stoneflies and mayflies are more straight.
Yeah.
Just things that you can observe.
kind of general things,
Right. So if you make a science out of it, it's more fun.
Yeah. Well, and here's a picture. I will typically, because I have my camera with me, I'll just take a photo of the insect against a ruler, so I at least have an idea of the relative size and
also
color.
The alcohol can fade it a little bit. So if you take a picture of it as well, the color, you can see the color of it a little bit.
And I'll collect these, so if I do, it's a fishery that I hadn't been to, let's say, take a picture with rulers or take the samples, and then I usually try to quickly get the photos.
Right.
But then I can refer to those again if I'm going back. If somewhere like the Provo, if we're fishing a lot, we're not out there sampling every day.
Right.
Maybe we should, but
dude, that's my big takeaway from this: is you need to
is just sample a little bit more than what you think.
Multiple sections of the river,
and multiple times of the year. You're probably missing the boat on some stuff, but
anyway,
I think there's I love that stuff. I kind of nerd out on the bugs.
Well, that's what makes it, to me, it makes it more fun and interesting.
Oh yeah.
The other thing is just the diversity of the insects and other organisms that are there. We have a problem here in Utah that they're not addressing, and that is that in the lower part of the Middle Provo, we've got a snail population down there that is just taking over with over 100 per square foot. Ooh. And we've got the little clams that are also down there now. They weren't there 5 years ago.
Wow.
When we started doing it.
Is that something that would move upstream and gradually start taking, or what?
That's an interesting thing. Most things float downstream. Insects, particularly those that fly, will move upstream normally and to lay their eggs, and then things have a tendency to move downstream. But when you have snails and clams and so forth, those would just accumulate downstream. Somehow they're getting upstream, but there's another reservoir up there.
Oh yeah, that's pushing it.
Okay, and you've got people from all over the country coming in and with critters on their props and in their engines, and we're doing these inspections now. Those are the things that we're supposed to be inspecting for. The problem is we don't know what to do with them once they become established.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to kill out the gastropods and the leeches, so the snails and the leeches. The leeches are not a problem, but my gosh, these snails and clams are.
Yeah.
So our fishery's in danger.
Yeah, and you wouldn't hear or know of that, too.
No,
that's
you guys do, because we come in and tell you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's excellent information just in general for a fishery. I mean, there's these small little things that you would never know.
Right.
And maybe until it's too late.
Okay. Let me make one last statement. I know that we're really...
No, it's we
this
have
is,
time.
This is probably
really
our
good.
top 5 podcast, Roger.
Yeah,
so
this
you
is
keep it going as long as you need.
Okay,
We think we know so much about fishing, and then in the half hour we realize we're doing it all wrong.
You do know a lot about fishing, and one of the fun parts is sharing that.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And but by knowing about the insects and what their life cycle is and their relative size, it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to make flies that are too big. They scare the fish away, and they size things up, and if you have something that's huge, some people will say, well, I'm doing fine with it. Well, keep going. You're good.
Right.
But you might want to downsize it just a little bit. And so don't overdo this thing. But then leeches are pretty big. And
Yeah, stoneflies are bigger than betas anyway. But that's a good point. I mean, because I've sampled and stuff, and you'll get like mayfly nymphs that all kind of look like betas, but you have multiple different sizes of those.
Yes.
What's that? Is that an age class thing or a species thing or?
Good for you, Cheech. They're called instars.
Instars.
So the egg hatches, and in aquatic insects, the immatures are called naiads, particularly in those that have a simple metamorphosis, which is another thing we should talk about if we get a minute.
For sure.
So,
Keep it going, yeah.
Okay, but the point being is that the egg hatches and you get an immature, and as it feeds, it outgrows the size of its exoskeleton. And so they have to molt their covering. And when they molt, they're very susceptible to be predated on. But second of all, they get larger with each molt. The average number of molts across the board is about 5.
Wow.
Some of the diptera have 2 or 3.
And how long of a period of time? Is that just all over the board?
Good for you. That depends on the species and the size. If you, how many molts is around 5, how fast they do, that they go through the maturation process, has a lot to do with the environment. Insects are what we call poikiothermic, that they're cold-blooded. If it's too cold, they don't reproduce, they don't grow. And so when it's really cold water, and that's why sometimes a thermometer is a good thing to have around. But if you're just above freezing, the fish are lethargic, the insects are not growing, the populations are not going to expand in that little brief period of time. Now, I go fishing anywhere. I have a temperature below which I will not fish, 6. Because when I get out, my waders freeze, and I can't undo the shoelaces on my boots.
We'll get you some boas, and we'll get you sub-zero, buddy.
But anyway, cold water it stops the growth if it's cold like it's been here in Utah this year. But the water temperatures changes with the time of the year. Insects they're very hardy. You're going to get me going down a road. It's my son, who's also a scientist. He's a microbiologist. he's been working with the some mosquitoes that are in these pockets in the rocks down in southern Utah. They're called floodwater mosquitoes, and they can go through a dry down process, which is gradual, meaning over a few days to weeks, where they don't have any indication of life. It's called cryptobiosis.
Oh man!
And then when it rains,
hold on, are you about to tell us that they're zombie mosquitoes now?
yes, there are.
And hold on to your hats.
There are some shrimp that also do this, but they
Brigham thinks that cougars are the most dangerous animals, and we need to have him listen to this.
Mosquitoes, zombie ones. Especially.
Sorry, I keep
Zombies.
interrupting.
Well, but the point being is that I'm trying to just point out to you that when you can have a generation time of days rather than months, weeks, years. See, for a human being, the generation time is about 16 years worldwide. That's when the women will have their first child worldwide, not
yeah.
here
Yeah.
necessarily. Well, 16 years, let's just say that, versus a fly, that some of the flies have a generation time a week, in a week. And so
Yeah.
when you have fast generation time, you can select for traits that have survival, the survival of the fittest. And so there are some amazing things out there, is the
That's
point.
crazy.
So with cycles, we need to get to the point where the whiting hacklebirds have a mosquito cycle.
Yeah.
And then we've got 10-foot long dry fly feathers,
Okay.
size 28.
They'll be too big.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, this is crazy. I mean, because I mean, I know that I know very few people who actually sample the river or take like a stomach sample. Now let's talk about that a little bit. How much does that really damage a fish?
Well, it depends on how gentle you are.
Uh-huh.
We work with the Game and Parks group for this. They'll shock fish for us, and then we'll sacrifice those fish because we want to open them up and see exactly what's in there. You can stomach pump them. That's pretty tough on fish.
Yeah.
So in a scientific way, it's better to sacrifice the fish,
Just so you can use it all.
you get everything. But it is amazing the number of insects that they'll have in them if you're sampling the fish during a peak time when they're feeding.
Oh, I bet.
It's hundreds.
Yeah.
Is the point.
That's awesome.
But I see fish, and I'm a fish watcher, that will come along and you'll see them kind of go on their side and then put their nose down and then flip, and they're scraping off the insects that are living in the moss. And then they turn right around, go downstream, and come up and just open their mouth, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
that is so
we gotta
cool.
watch fish more too.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah, as far as
But-
where they're feeding specifically.
But when it comes to fly fishing, to me, the ultimate are dry flies.
Yeah.
Because you get to see everything happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a dry fly fisherman until I was introduced in the recent past with the jighead nymphs, and so forth.
Yeah.
I catch more fish now than I ever did with something
Well.
something as simple as a zebra midge
Mm-hmm.
is just dynamite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are mimicking flies or
Yeah.
diptera.
And that's a good point. Like, you could make a midge that has like 8 materials and get it to have little tiny offshoots and coloration, or you could fish a zebra midge. The fish are
Right.
kind of see them both as the same thing, just as food. So, and I'm not saying don't tie the complicated flies, because that's really fun, but at the same time, just tie something that looks close and fish it.
Just enjoy yourself.
That's a
that's
good
it.
point.
You need to enjoy yourself. If you are not catching fish, enjoy the river.
Yeah.
And look close about what's going on with the river. You'll learn something.
Yeah.
This I just was reminded of this. Remember, was it last year or 2 years ago that we posted something that was a green drake?
Oh,
and
yeah.
And it was
It was not the
It's a
grandest.
Dronella
It was
grandis,
the
So,
lesser of the green drakes.
Anyway, so there were some guys that just got unglued, like to the point where you guys are professionals in this industry. You should know that Latin name of that bug, and it's just like, You're probably the type of guy that goes and tells everybody, "Oh, I'm going fly fishing. I shall go fly fishing." Versus, "Hey, I'm going to go fish." You know.
Well, entomologists laugh at that.
Yeah.
You know, I feel badly for people who can only pronounce a word one way.
That's true.
Chironomid, or, you know.
I agree with you, Roger.
Beatus.
Roger, good. Well, I also feel the same way about spelling. If you can only spell a word one way,
Yeah.
you're deficient.
Well, my wife's name is Maria, Marrya. And if I ever tell my phone to call that name, it calls one of my old coworkers named Maria.
Sure.
So I either have to mispronounce my name or my wife's name in front of my friends, and they're going to think, "What's up?" Or I sound like a jerk and I just say, "Hey Siri, call my wife." And so
And
wait,
it
no.
just did, and
No, don't
she's
do it.
saying, "Get off."
Yeah, she's going to call me back any second because she's going to see
Get
that.
off this podcast.
Yeah.
You're going way too long,
Well, there
too
you go.
far down
No,
the
no.
stream.
People are going to love this, Roger.
Yeah, we'll get good feedback on this.
Yeah.
100%.
But anyway, yeah, I agree. Like, and the point in case is don't take it too seriously, because if somebody else gets enjoyment out of just going to the river fishing a royal coachman and a prince nymph, then go for it. That's fun for you.
Yeah.
But if another guy likes to study and do nerdy entomology stuff, then that's a good way to do it too. There's no wrong way.
Like for me, I think, and we do have some fly tire beginner series. This is a huge shout out to for a reason for people to get into tying. Like,
Yeah.
it opens up a whole not just tying of the flies, but understanding the trout's diet, understanding where they eat, how they eat, and that behavior is going to help you catch more fish. So, I mean, learn to tie flies. I mean, that's a big takeaway, but it's just so much more enjoyment, I think, when you get into at least a little bit on the entomology side.
A big thing that has struck home for me, Roger, is you've used the word observe. We go to the river, we just start flogging it with a grumpy frumpy, just wah wah, But how many people actually go to the river and just sit and watch? There's a fish rising right there. I'm going to maybe watch him for 20 minutes before I try to catch him. That's huge.
Cheech, you watch them. I'm gonna fish.
You talk about observation.
I'm after data.
All right. Well, I'm in the point in my career. Well, I feel like I'm going to observe. All right.
Well, you need to.
No, but I mean that's admittedly something that I don't do. I try to watch them, but I'm buck fever. I'm trying to catch the fish.
But I really enjoy tying flies because it's an art form.
Yeah.
And if you can actually get close to what these just elaborate insects are,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
Just
I mean,
to
it
do
really
that.
is.
I tie hundreds of flies, and I give them all away because if I have too many, my wife will figure out where all her money is going. There are very few animals that have died in my life that I don't still have a part of them in my fly room.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, Roger, this has been awesome. We might get comments and have enough for people to ask questions in like another volume of it.
Yeah, I mean, drop us some questions in the comments or send us a message or whatever. But we'd love to have Roger back if there's some topics that you guys want to dig into a little bit further. He's kind of the guy. So,
but I literally have known the word entomology for 20 some odd years, as long as I've been fishing. But I learned things today just in talking about this that I realized, man, I'm really missing the boat on a few things, as far as just bug observation. That's pretty cool.
It just adds a different dimension to
absolutely
to what we do.
Yeah,
sure.
And it makes you thankful. And I think we all need to be thankful for the things that we have here that we can enjoy. And we need to do everything we can to preserve this goodness about where we live and the people that are here and the animals that are there for us. I don't like to kill fish. I like to turn them back, and they're just too beautiful to only catch once.
Yeah.
And we need to teach others about that.
I love that too. Like, just the air of positivity. That's what you always bring when you come in the shop. You're making us laugh, but like, focus on that. That's pretty killer.
Right.
Enjoy it.
It's easier.
Well, Roger, we're super appreciative of you coming and chatting with us.
Thank
It's
you.
been awesome.
Yes.
And again, if anybody has comments or questions, drop them in comments, shoot us a message, and we'll maybe dig into them
That's
later.
fine. But, I'm a long way from having been a dentist, but make sure that you floss the teeth you want to keep.
So you were telling us that your family thought you were a dentist for how long?
Oh, about 40 years. And so I would go home in the summer and they'd have me check their teeth, and I'd just tell them to floss and brush, at least 3 times a day. And finally, after about 40 years, they handed me their teeth, and I thought, I should have been a dentist.
All right, we'll leave you with that.
That is too
Thanks
awesome.
for tuning in. This was maybe my favorite episode.
Ditto.
Kind of because Lance was here. But wasn't here, but no, just kidding. All right,
All
tune in
right,
next time.
peace out.
See ya.